The Birds podcast. It is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast is here. You can get that on any podcasting platform and, of course, on their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. We got a lot of questions as they get ready for the Niners. They are a 3-point underdog at some books, 2.5 at others, but they are the underdog in this game. It's exactly where they like it generally. Geoff Mosher, how disrespected do you think the Eagles feel entering this week, a 10-1 home dog?
I'm sure if the Eagles win, you're going to hear about that afterward. You know, even Nick Sirianni today said, hey, you know, this franchise seems to do its best work when it's considered the underdog anyway. So, as of now, and we're pretty early because today is the first locker room day, and, I don't know how much, if it's even closed yet, and there'll be tomorrow and Friday. There'll be people ask questions, and I imagine the Eagles are going to be, as they usually are, they're going to follow the lead of Jalen Hurts, and they'll be pretty buttoned up. There might be one or two comments. Maybe A.J. Brown will say something. But I think
he already did. A.J. Brown already fired off a tweet already.
I was teasing it. But my point is, I think the Eagles' history recently is to win and then sort of talk about it after. And they definitely love the disrespect and the underdog angle. And the fact that they are underdogs at home where they've been so successful and they're 10-1 facing an 8-3 team, they're going to use that like any good team would as fuel.
Yeah, I know the first question out of the chutes today kind of sets the tone for the week, and it's, hey, do you anticipate some chippiness in this game? I mean, it's obviously not lost what San Francisco did all offseason long here, right? They felt they were the better team last year and didn't get a chance to show it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they've earned the nickname the 40-winders for a reason. When you talk like that and you say it, you're going to have to back it up. So I expect the 49ers to be just as motivated and to come into the link and play an excellent game and be ready to go. I don't think that they're the type of team that talks a lot and then bows out with it. Some people have said the Cowboys are the type of team that talks a lot, but then by the end of the year, they got their tails between their legs. This 49ers team a little bit different.
Yeah, and I know that, Philadelphia takes a look at it. You have to think, I want to get your take on this. There's almost more pressure on San Francisco to win this game, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. I mean, if San Francisco wins this game, there's now only a one-game gap, right, between them, I believe, and the Eagles, right, for the number one seed. If they lose, they're not getting the number one seed. I mean, the Eagles, at that point, will have two difficult games left against Seattle and against Dallas, and very well could win both, or at least one or two, if not both. And the last three games of the year, my God, New York, Arizona, New York. So I kind of feel like if the Eagles win this game against the Niners, they got that number one seed locked up. Nothing's for certain, but it looks really good for them, at least in terms of between them and San Francisco. You don't have to worry about San Francisco. San Francisco wins the game, Eagles lose, then all of a sudden the margin for error gets a little bit more dicey.
Yeah, I know on terms of what it means, too, but just the fact that they're the favorite in this game and then all the talking they've done. I mean, they have really put themselves in a position where they've got to win this game. But you know how this works, Moshe. If they win the game, Philadelphia, it becomes, well, hey, can you beat the same team twice in the season? Vice versa, same thing. If San Francisco wins this game, it's almost like, can you actually win in Philadelphia twice this year? Because as you said, even if San Francisco wins the game, they still would have work to do to get that home field advantage.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. Let's go back to the Kansas City game that the Eagles played 2 weeks ago at Arrowhead, right? I thought that was I don't want to call it a must-win game for the Eagles, but I thought it was very significant for them to win because if you feel like the Eagles are going to be back in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, which is, who would – I'm sure if you ask Vegas right now, that's probably a pretty good pairing from an odds standpoint. If that's the case, then you don't want to be the Eagles going back into that game, having already lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, having lost to them in the regular season this year, having lost to them in the regular season 2 years ago, having never beaten Andy Reid since he's left. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a psychological element to this game where I don't think you're thinking, oh, that's great. Law of averages says we're bound to win one here in the Super Bowl. I think it's the other way around. You think, man, this is our bugaboo. Like, this is our team we can't beat. But because the Eagles won that game, now if they meet up in the Super Bowl, they can say, yes, we can beat this team. And I think that's how, interestingly, San Francisco will probably feel about Philly in this game, although they did beat the Eagles in the regular season a couple of years ago. This is different. And I think that's probably how San Francisco feels when they play Dallas, and vice versa right now. I think Dallas, if they have to play San Francisco in the playoffs, it's going to be in the back of their minds that they crap the bed every time they play the 49ers.
That's right. They've knocked them out the last, 2 or 3 years in a row?
3 years.
I think it is 3 years. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. You guys talked about this, and Nick did as well. They only have 2 healthy off-ball linebackers at the moment. Cunningham, we don't have a status for. You can't go into the game with 2 linebackers. So give me a crystal ball.
Well, if you go into the game with 3 off-ball linebackers, but your third is a rookie who's undrafted and has never played a snap of NFL football defense. He's played on special teams, but not NFL defensive football. Talking about Ben Van Sumeren. Are you really going into the game with 3 off-the-ball linebackers, or are you going in with 2? And I don't know what this guy can do for us, I think, because that's really the situation here. I was very, very surprised, Mike, and I think there's maybe a little bit of arrogance in this, that they didn't even work any linebackers out on Tuesday, which is a big workout day in the NFL. Yes, they had Shaq Leonard visiting, but anybody with common sense would have told you that Shaq Leonard was, probably not going to sign with anybody this week. Dallas is on his list. He visited Dallas. Dallas plays tomorrow night. So there was no way he was going to play for the Cowboys, even if he does want to sign with them, right? And he's taking his time getting here. There was just no way he could play in this defense and be ready by Sunday. So the Eagles obviously should have, in my opinion, been kicking the tires on somebody out there, someone who can play this position, a veteran on the street, somebody on a practice squad, somebody somewhere who's played, because if Nick Morrow or if Christian Ellis gets hurt, then we're looking at Ben Van Sumeren in the ball game, and it's already a precarious position. That would make it worse.
Right. That's a spot where we can kind of look at and say, look, even with a healthy Zach Cunningham and Nakobe Dean, your 2 starters at the beginning of the year, you don't feel great about the matchups with McCaffrey, Kittle, and then even Deebo Samuel, who runs a lot of drag stuff.
Right. I mean, Ben Van Sumeren is not. I mean, like, he's been on the team and he's played in this defense, and same thing with Christian Ellis a little bit. He's not played that much defense for the Eagles. Kyle Shanahan's going to look at that guy and say, how can I come up with some spread formation, some empty? How can I get this guy one-on-one against one of my interior receivers? Because I'm really going to try to do that. The Bills did that a lot. You saw them go empty, and they were able to get Dalton Kincaid at times over Byard, sometimes over Morrow. Like, you can do it. You got to block it to do it, but you can do it. And if you feel like you'll win that matchup in a second and a half, you're not as worried about the protection. So it's going to be an interesting sort of cat and mouse game between Kyle Shanahan and Sean Desai here.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, we're talking with Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. If they did sign Shaq Leonard, okay, let's say they did sign him, I would imagine, does he play on? Is he active? And if he's here, do you view him as being the starter and then either Morrow or Cunningham are out?
So that was part of the discussion that we had on the Inside the Birds podcast this morning that dropped. That the concept, I mean, there's so many layers, right? Like, who is Shaq Leonard right now? I can't tell you. I've watched a ton of Colts tape. But I do know that the Colts are paying him $6 million to not play.
And by the way, Moshe, they are currently a playoff team. This isn't a team that's at the end of the line here just trying to get through a season.
Right. It's not like, the Colts are dumb. They have a stupid owner. They do stupid things. Well, I mean, some of that is true, but they're a competitive team right now. So that's to me, it's more significant that they released him and they benched him first, then released him. They don't feel like it's worth having him on the roster.
Wow.
So that guy comes here, And yes, he could help you fill a hole while you're got injuries because he's got experience, although he's never played in this kind of defense before. I would say what happens when you've got a healthy Zach Cunningham, who is playing well, a healthy Nick Morrow, who is healthy right now, and when Nakobe Dean comes back. I mean, is Shaq Leonard, are you presenting to him in this meeting that, and I thought Nick Sirianni's wording was very interesting today, Mike, we'll get into that in a second, but are you presenting to him that he's here to be a starter? No matter what, he's going to be a starter, because I think that's hard to do if you're Sirianni and the staff, not knowing how good he's going to be, and also having linebackers who are doing their jobs all right. Like, if this was a guy who is playing at a Pro Bowl level and for whatever reason just asked out of this situation, that's totally different. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what kind of opportunities they're presenting for him, but I would think if I'm Shaq Leonard, my signing is predicated on two things, right? One is I might be looking for a Super Bowl this year because I don't know if I'll have a chance to win it, and both the Cowboys and the Eagles are good. And two, though, if I still think I can play, I've got to put good film out there. And to be able to put good film out there, I've got to be able to play a lot, a decent amount, so that even though I've got $6 million this year, I am concerned about where is my next home, where is the next team that's going to employ me for 2 or 3 years, and hopefully not do the 1-year deal everywhere I go type thing. So I would think the opportunity for playing time would be very important, and I don't know if that's better in Dallas, if it's better in Philadelphia once Philadelphia is healthy, if it's better somewhere else, Denver, I don't know. So I imagine that's why Shaq Leonard's not in a rush to just say, I'm signing today with somebody.
All right, Geoff Mosher, good stuff. Thoughts on the secondary in this matchup, Slay and Bradbury, who apparently, obviously he spoke about it today, but, last year Debo said, yeah, he's trash, Bradbury. My thought is, and you got Byard and how he kind of changes things and what you've seen from him with Blankenship. Where do you look at this secondary against San Francisco?
I'm really glad you asked that question because it makes me want to go back to our conversation on Monday a little bit. You and Ryan, you guys asked me where I felt the Eagles could improve, and we were kind of joking, well, at 10-1, it's being very ticky-tack, right, to point out areas of improvement. And I happened to be listening to you yesterday when you were talking with Casey Joyner, and I think you asked him a similar question, and he laughed. He said, oh, my God, there's like a million places this team can improve. Have you looked at their defensive metrics and their defensive ratings? And that got me thinking, because it was such an opposite answer of me, right, that I would agree with Casey to an extent of this. I obviously think that the Eagles have not played certain routes very well. We talk about bunch formations. We talk about motion. Can they improve there? Yes. Obviously, better communication, more practice, whatever it is, that is an area that they can improve. But where I think I might disagree with Casey's assertion that they can be so much better is that I just don't think, Mike, in the back seven, Bradbury included, that the Eagles are as athletic and dynamic as they were last year. Certainly not. They don't have a player of C.J. Gardner-Johnson's quickness, instincts, playmaking ability. I thought Marcus Epps has some flaws, but he gets to the ball. I mean, he would hit hard. Remember the Treylon Burks hit? I mean, he was fast to the ball. He was good in run stopping, quick, good player. He had a really good year for the Eagles. Same thing with the linebackers. T.J. Edwards, Kaiser White was one of the fastest linebackers the Eagles have had in quite a while. James Bradbury last year in a different defensive scheme played at a all-pro level. We see he's not. So, I mean, can you look at anybody in the back seven after the front four rush and say they're probably going to be in the Pro Bowl this year? Maybe Darius Slay on reputation, and he has had some good games, but I don't see any player in the Eagles back seven that I think is having a Pro Bowl season. Do you?
Great question. Probably not. No, not a Pro Bowl season. We were talking about this yesterday. Is this defense better than the defense from last year? Probably not, right? I mean...
Right, and that's where my point is. What is the capacity for this group of players in the back seven to play so much better, right, that it would change where their defensive rankings are, and they'd be top 5 like last year, top 2. Look, they're not bad. I think they're steady players. You're getting steady play from Reed Blankenship. You're getting steady play from Byard since he's come over. Getting steady to good play from Morrow. Steady from Zach Cunningham against the run. Obviously, he's still not a guy you want covering a ton, although he's done a good job. You're not getting very good play from Bradbury. I suppose he can pick it up, but I don't think that there's So what I would say to Casey is I don't think that this team can improve drastically on the back end because I just think that they're playing to the level that they are, if that makes sense.
I guess, the one thing I agree with what you're saying, too. Epps and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I feel like you had more athleticism back there, more ability to get bigger plays. Blankenship has been, a guy who, I always say, like, he's a smart guy. He makes the plays. He doesn't hurt you. He doesn't, he's always in the position, but he's not making plays. He's just not. He doesn't do things to hurt your team, but he's not like a playmaker. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson with those interceptions, he was all over the place. Byard, a different player than Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Absolutely. I mean, you had three guys who were played at a Pro Bowl level last year. You had Slay, you had Bradbury, and you had C.J. Gardner-Johnson, obviously got hurt. And you can make an argument, it's hard in the NFL with the popularity contest at linebacker, but T.J. Edwards played about as well as any linebacker that the Eagles have had in, maybe a decade. I mean, maybe since Trotter. He played a different type of linebacker, but he played really, really well last year. Nick Morrow's playing good, but I don't think he's playing like T.J. Edwards played last year. Same thing with Cunningham. So that's where I would just say I think that this is going to be what the Eagles are defensively. I think Sean Desai has done a pretty good job being able to mix up his coverages. Yes, the 49ers will go after James Bradbury. Yeah, they're going to take their shots. That's what they wanted to do last year. They've come out and said it. The Giants felt that they could do it too. Teams this year have done it. The Bills got them twice last week. But, teams have gotten James Bradbury this year, and the Eagles have kind of won.
Yeah.
So,
last year they had the number 2 ranked defense in the league. This is an interesting dynamic. Yeah, the number 2 ranked defense in the league. I have said this many times that almost every single guy on the team last year had their best season they ever had. I mean, almost every guy had a career year last year, and yet that defense was not good enough to win a Super Bowl. The people hated the coordinator. This defense, we just got done saying, probably not as talented as last year's defense. Statistically, they are ranked nowhere near last year's defense. But do we think this defense gives them a better shot to win?
It's funny, Mike. Sean Desai is doing everything that Eagles fans wanted Jonathan Gannon to do. I watched the tape from the Buffalo Bills game, and I made this remark to Greg Cosell. He agreed. I don't think Sean Desai plays the same coverage on back-to-back snaps at all in a game. If he does, it's less than 3%. He played 8 to 9 different coverages against the Bills. And almost, again, never on back-to-back plays. So he's making the quarterback every single time think, is this two zone, 2 man, 1 robber, 1 zone, simulated pressure, zone blitz? Like, he's doing so many really interesting, good things and trying to, I think help out his personnel on the back end, especially by doing that, by making the quarterback think. And that's what people wanted Jonathan Gannon to do last year, not play a stagnant defense that gets picked apart by every single good quarterback who plays against it, because that quarterback knows what to expect prior and after the snap. But the unfortunate part for Sean Desai is he does not have the personnel that Jonathan Gannon had. So I actually think it's a really interesting juxtaposition. I think the fans, if they don't love Sean Desai, would probably love him even more if this guy just had like 1 or 2 more Pro Bowl guys, because he's doing some really, really interesting things on defense. And I think Josh Allen had to work for every pass that he had. There were not too many gimmies to Josh Allen on Sunday, and same thing with Patrick Mahomes. And we saw that the Rams, after a really good first quarter, were shut out in the second half, and Miami's offense, was so explosive. They only scored, I think, 17 points in that game. So it's, obviously this is a big test for Desai. This is a 49ers offense that he saw twice last year when he was with Seattle. So he'll have a good plan. I think he can do things to neutralize it, but at the end of the day, this to me is about players versus players.
Geoff Mosher, the Inside the Birds podcast. Check out that, of course, drops at all your podcasting locations, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and, of course, you can check out their video platform on the YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Geoff Mosher, take care, buddy.
All right, Mike, have a good one.